The Still Loading podcast is brought to you by the wonderful people on Patreon. Amazing people like Matt, aka Stormageddon, Kevin from the Bit by Bit Foundation, Ryan K, Stephen P, Gilmer, and Mr. Biscuits have all been wonderful enough to support the show. So if you would also like to get your name read at the beginning of an episode, along with a bunch of other goodies, go over to patreon.com/stillloadingpod and check out everything it has to offer. On this episode of Still Loading...
Where's the Triforce? It's not here! I'm very upset!
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Still Loading podcast. I'm your host, Josh Koval, and today's episode, it's another Zelda one. What? That's right. You saw that correctly. Normally we alternate between the Zelda cartoon and the Super Mario Super Show cartoon, but this time we're switching it up. We did Zelda last month, and we're doing Zelda again. We're doing Zelda Episode 6, That Sinking Feeling. Well, we have a special guest here to talk about that in just a moment. But of course, before we get into that insanity, my co-host with the Mo-host, Dexter Morrill. Dex, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. This is an exciting episode to be on. And honestly, anytime's a good time to talk about Zelda. So.
Well, as I've said in these other ones, like the Zelda cartoon has been very hit or miss for me. So I wouldn't say it's always a good time to talk about Zelda, specifically when it's these cartoons. But in general, it is a good time to talk about Zelda. And you know what? We have a Zelda fan here among us. Joining Dexter and I for this episode, we have a very special guest. His name is Chris Carpenter. He is an actor who has acted alongside Sean Astin and Bobby Lee in a movie called Hero Mode. He's also a giant Zelda fan, and we can't thank him enough for coming on the show. Chris, how are you doing today?
I am doing very well, Josh. Thank you so much to you and Dexter for having me on. I am very excited for this, and I appreciate you guys shifting around your schedule a bit as well to make this work.
No problem at all, man. Thank you so much again for coming on. I've been looking forward to this for a while, and normally we would jibber jab a little bit more, but we actually are on a bit of a time crunch on this one. Let's move into the episode now, shall we? Let's discuss this. And as we said off mic, Chris, Dexter and I both profusely apologize for making you watch this episode, this cartoon. This episode is called That Sinking Feeling. It was looks like it was directed by John Grusd. I don't know how you pronounce that. Grusd. Written by Dennis O'Flaherty. It was originally released on October 13th, 1989. The live-action Mario segment that came along with it was called Tutti Frutti Oh Mario, which we will... we got thoughts on that. We got thoughts on all that. There's a lot to talk about with this. So, let's dive into this in earnest, shall we? This episode begins with Link and Zelda on a picnic. Link is taking Zelda on a picnic somewhere that she's angry about. She's like, "Why are you taking me on a picnic? This place isn't cool." Like, she's immediately hostile to this entire idea without any other preamble. To be fair though, Link is always trying to perv on her or smooch her in some way, shape, or form. I was going to
say, with Link's reputation 5 episodes before this, I don't blame her.
Just in the last episode where he tries to swing into her bed at night and her dad's like, "Here, give her a flower." It's weird. He reveals to her this, she asks, "Why did you pick this spot?" And he reveals to her this really beautiful location. and it's like this beautiful arch, and it looks like there's a statue on a pedestal, and she's like, oh my gosh, this is so beautiful, how romantic. And he's like, oh, I was hoping that's not how Link sounds, but oh, I was hoping you'd think that. And then he goes, maybe after our picnic you'll consider giving me a, and then she jumps him like immediately. Like, it's not even a shadow of a doubt. She's like, I'm DTF. I don't want to say the word right now. Let's do this. Come on, Link. And as per usual, everything always kind of runs amok. Something happens. Chris, do you want to talk about what happens that causes this DTF moment to suddenly disappear?
Sure. So they're about to smooch, and then the ground starts to shake. And
Smook me,
the
pucker up, princess.
Yep.
Oh, that line.
And then out from beneath them, or they rise up into the sky. Out from beneath them comes this dungeon entrance, or this underworld entrance, and a bunch of what do you call these? What are they?
They're supposed to be Tektites.
Oh,
which
yeah.
They don't jump around as much as they do in the game for some reason, but they're supposed to be like the Tektites, which were in the original and in
a lot of other Zeldas.
They hopped around on the water.
Okay, well, a whole bunch of Tektites come out.
They definitely don't shoot. Yeah, they definitely don't shoot webs like they do.
Yeah, well, I had a question for you guys. So I haven't watched any of the other episodes. This is my first introduction to this. What, aside from the many years of jokes about it online, and first off, 2 minutes in, or however, at whatever point we're at in this, it is already meeting and exceeding expectations. It's, I did wonder though, because I don't know, when was this? What year was this made, and how established were these elements of Zelda like already?
That's a very good question. Go ahead, Dex.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say this is 89. So
wow.
I don't think
Zelda 2 would have been out. I think it's the only one.
Okay, it might just have come out.
Yeah.
There's actually more Zelda 2 references when he shows up in the Captain N show around this time. But as far as its cultural touchstone, most people are just going off of just the very first NES game.
This would have been, so Zelda 2 Adventure Link came out in 88 in North America. So this would have been probably in production when that game came out, and it came out a year prior to that in Japan in 87. So it really just depends on what type of information the animators were given. Yeah. I'm pretty sure a lot of this is based off of Zelda 2 and Zelda 1 combined, which is also why there's only two pieces. Like, you saw it in this, Chris, but like there's only two parts of the Triforce in this, because that's what it was in the original game. So there's only the Triforce of courage and wisdom, right, Dex? I think that's
wisdom and power.
Wisdom and power. There was no Triforce of courage, and so there's just only two pieces of a Triforce in the cartoon.
That's so interesting. I had written down a note just how it's really it's fascinating to see. Like, this is a pretty I mean, you look at Zelda NES and Adventure of Link, like those are very, basic, visually, there's not a lot to them because they're from so long ago. Whereas this is like a full-on animation, and it's interesting to see how they brought this all to life based on what kind of limited information there was from that first game or first two games, if that, was part of this. Like stuff like, the look of like, the Triforces, the colors, and how there's only two of them. I think the Triforce talks later in this, or am I mistaken?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you're not mistaken.
The
Triforce does talk.
Ganon's voice later on, and then just like the look of Hyrule Castle and stuff. Like, honestly, it's not a criticism. It's just really interesting to see how they, brought this stuff to life and sort of how it compares now to what Zelda is today. It's neat, to say the least.
Well, remember too, if you like, just because the graphics were like that, like I actually think Zelda 2's graphics look pretty good for the time it came out.
Yeah.
But and Zelda 1 obviously for the time it came out, but the manuals had a lot of extra art that they obviously could not render on the system. So like, if you look at the original Legend of Zelda manual, like the design for Link in this very much looks like the design from the manuals.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
right.
But a lot of the other stuff, like Ganon and whatnot, like that, like, yeah, you knew Ganon was like a pig man, but like you didn't really see like a drawn version of him necessarily. And also some of the other
He had like
characters
maybe two poses or something like that in the
exactly
game. You know, this sprite had like two poses.
exactly and man, I love Ganon in this show.
Yeah, I
I'm
was
not
going to
gonna
say
lie.
part of the charm, because we covered the Captain N series before this, and part of the charm of that I would always bring up is like I loved it as a kid because I mean I was talking about fever dreams of like memories. That's how Captain N and this show and Mario Super Show was for me because I was so young. Um, which we'll talk about that when we get to the live action Mario section. I had a memory unlocked from that, but my favorite part about those shows and why they spoke to me so much as a young kid is because of that. Like all I had to go off of was, you know, sprite based graphics, instruction manuals, and here they are completely fleshing out these worlds in these animated series. Whereas nowadays, like, you know, companies have their own like lore Bibles and their own like this is how these characters are going to look in all forms of media. And so it was very novel back then that there was, you know, they were just letting these Saturday morning cartoon writers come up with this lore for them. It's really fun.
There's a lot of wild lore in this show
Yeah.
that like that doesn't exist outside of the episodes either.
Yes. Like magic based magnets.
Which I have a lot to say about that when we get to that.
Boy.
So yeah, they the ground rises up. There's like a citadel almost underneath the ground, and all the Tektites come out. And thank you for letting us know what they were, Dexter. I could not remember the name of them for the life of me. That's pretty much a running theme on this series where like I'm like, I know this is a Zelda enemy, but God help me, I don't remember their names. And Tektites was definitely one of them. They shoot web out and it looks just like they're vomiting. It just looks like it's brown. It's not white. It's like the color of like packaging tape almost.
Yeah.
And they wrap Zelda up and she's about to get like pulled down into the dungeon by them. And Link is able to fight his way out of like a whole group of them. Like there's like 12 of them or something like that. And Zelda's about to get her head smashed off because her head's leaning over this cliffside where the ground rose, and as it's coming back down, as the citadel is descending back into the earth, her head is stuck in between the ground and where the top of the archway of the citadel is like coming back down. And he does rescue her though. He gets her out of the wraps, out of the not the wraps, it was the web, even though it looks like a wrap. And he's like, does this mean there's no time for a kiss? And she's like, well, the Cupid statue's still here, so I guess it's still romantic. And sure. And I explain to me that train of logic. Like, does that mean that if you just have like a Cupid statue and like if you just bring it with you, you know, do you have like a little one in your pocket? Can you just convince her to kiss you anywhere?
The Cupid statue lore did not catch on for the rest of the Zelda series.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask, did either of you think that the statue was going to play a bigger role in this episode? Because looking at it, like it wasn't a painted background. It was an actual like part of the cell, which made me think it was going to start moving like a character. But yeah,
I thought that too. And especially because they give such a specific, like they point it out specifically, which usually means like, you know, something is going to happen with it. But no, not. I mean, I guess the thing that happens with it is that it gets sucked into the ground by what we find out in the very next scene is the overworld magnet.
Yes.
That's just what they call it, the overworld magnet. This magnet, I don't think they realize how powerful this thing is. The fact that it can just like, not only can it just, if you put it in a cavern underground, it could suck anything above it down to it, but it can also magically recreate the ground that it got sucked through. Like a demolition would be so easy. You just
almost like quicksand.
And then all the ground is just healed.
Yeah,
it's it's back to normal.
Yeah, it's almost like quicksand. Like we talked about is such a pervasive thing in these cartoons. Is quicksand.
We see later literally the entire castle just sinks, and but like the grass is still there. Like it's so interesting.
No damage to the earth at all.
Yeah.
It's a very environmentally friendly magnet.
Yeah.
That's actually how magnets work.
Is this a thing
right?
from the previous
Right.
episodes? Was this magnet like established, or is this a new?
No.
Okay.
No.
I assumed it was.
Not even in the slightest.
What's funny is I feel like there's so many actual game references in this episode, but the actual like Ganon plot with the magnet is completely made up, and I love that it's just a straight up like cartoon U-shaped magnet in an orb.
Yeah. It's the most bizarre combination of high fantasy and like mundane existence
So
between
funny.
everything.
Yes.
And
We
then
did get another name drop of the Goraya, though. That is
yes, is that another enemy from the game?
Yes, they're the ones that throw boomerangs in the original game, and there's like a group of them that you have to destroy in the second dungeon to get the magic boomerang.
I'm looking at the manual right now. Oh, there it is. Yep, that is a Goraya.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I totally called it when he fights the Gold Knight. That is a Dark Nut. I was like, I'm pretty sure that's a Dark Nut, but I wasn't
Yes.
quite sure. All right, I'm getting better at this. So the Goraya was supposed to suck Link and Zelda down with the statue, but he missed. Go figure. You can't fucking see anything. You're like miles below ground, and you're like, here, let me aim this magnet at a non-magnetic person. It's not metal, but somehow it can attract stone. I don't understand. I should not really think this much into this. Ganon is mad about it. He's mad that it didn't work. And so then he goes, I have a better plan. And while after that, it cuts back to Link and Zelda going back to the castle, because something I forgot to mention is after Ganon steals the statue, Zelda's like, I'm mad. F this. We're going to defeat Ganon right now. We're going to have a confrontation, as she's
It's time to end this.
time to end this. And so she goes back to the castle. They're basically going to get the Triforce of, I forget, what do they have? Wisdom?
Yes.
Okay. The Triforce of Wisdom, it just hovers on a string. It just kind of floats around with them, and it talks to them and gives them some obscure prophecy that in order to defeat Ganon, you have to have a magic bracelet. I paraphrased that to hell and back, but they're going to go find Ganon.
It's so funny. It's like a little balloon just like floating alongside them, and it's not even. I don't think it's even triangular. Like
It's a diamond, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
But I
didn't even think about
have to
that.
commend them for like taking a stab at like realizing some of these elements. Like somebody decided, let's make the Triforce talk, and I have to commend them for swinging for the fences. Imagine if like it says everyone keeps begging Nintendo to bring back like companions or partners, like Navi and Fi and stuff. Or Midna. Imagine if in the next game it's just this Triforce floating around beside you like a little balloon talking to you.
Well,
I mean,
all us old heads
Echoes
would be
of
like,
Wisdom.
holy shit, they did it. They
did
brought back.
The Echoes of Wisdom little character that follows Zelda around's name is
That's
Tri.
so true. That's basically this. Kind of.
Yep.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yep. The animated series did it first. That's
Mhm.
something that I always joke about, like with whether it's this or Captain N, that there's like there are these either pop culture things or things from the series or whatever that crop up, and it's like, oh, they did it first
Yeah,
here.
honestly, there are some aspects of this that do sort of probably not intentionally, actually definitely not intentionally, but like for example, there's
do you
quite
mean?
a bit of Tears of the Kingdom here, like with all of the ground sinking and rising up again and the castle like going down into basically the
That's a good
depths
call.
at the end, and then them confronting Ganon there. Like obviously I don't think Tears of the Kingdom took inspiration from this, but it's cool to see like some ideas have sort of always kind of existed in some way or another in the Zelda series. I mean, the underworld has always kind of been a thing, but
It's a shame, Chris. You missed one of the biggest things they have not brought back: the evil jar.
the evil jar.
yeah. So
Ganon is great
anytime
at
in
naming things.
anytime in this world when Ganon or one of his enemies gets defeated, they just gets transported into this jar that's hidden in his base, and he calls it his evil jar.
Oh my gosh.
That's all it's, and
Yeah,
they
it's
just
it's
kind
full
of
this
hover
evil
and gas.
mist. Yeah, it's like an evil mist that's inside of it, and so when any of his minions are destroyed, they poof back into the evil jar, and that's where he
Oh,
spends
that's
it.
great.
Yes.
That couldn't be more perfect and fitting.
And the way he says it, my evil
Yeah,
jar.
I can just
Like,
imagine it. Oh, that's too
we were
great.
joking about how he names things in the previous episode because he captured the king and sent him to the pit room, the bottomless pit room. Like they just have a room with a bottomless pit.
So great. Of course they do.
It's very straightforward. His evil jar, his pit room. I'm going to rescue. I'm going to attack Link with my magic, with my finger magic. I don't know. Like it's all just like very straightforward and matter of fact, and it's pretty amazing.
I'm going to put on my walking shoes.
Oh my god. So as they're leaving, the castle suddenly starts sinking into the ground. Oh, what could this be? Turns out that Ganon used the magnet to suck the entirety of Hyrule Castle into the ground, and now he's going to search for the Triforce of Wisdom in there. And Sprite and the king are still in the castle, and the king's only concern is like, oh no, Ganon's gonna be mad when it's not here.
He's right though.
I like how there's a brief moment where it seems like the king forgets what the Triforce is called too.
Yeah.
The Triforce. I love it. Like, yeah, lean into it. Why not? Such an interesting performance choice. I love it.
He kind of has the vibe of like one of the Looney Tunes characters where it's like, somebody's been sleeping in my bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Then it cuts back to the Link and Zelda trying to find the entrance to Ganon's lair, and she knows there's an entrance to the underworld at this like cliffside, and she's like, I can't seem to open it. I'm like, you're just pushing on a rock, kid. Like, what do you think's gonna happen? It's not even like it's a boulder; it's a cliffside. What are you gonna do to a cliff? I don't understand the logic here. But then Link goes, well, you have to have the right key, and just throws a bomb. Just fucking, it doesn't matter. I don't care how close you are to it.
It's a great tip on how to play the first Zelda
kidding.
game, though. Just if you can't get in, just bomb it.
That's true. That is very true. After they climb down, though, it cuts back to Ganon exploring, like searching through the castle. And this is the line that we're talking about where he's mad. But I love if you go to 9 minutes and 38 seconds, you might have to adjust the frame a little bit. Ganon is standing in front of the pedestal where the Triforce was, but because the width of the pedestal almost matches up perfectly with Ganon's hips, it looks like he's wearing a bizarre chastity belt. I love it so much. I'm like, wow, Ganon's really he's hiding something under that. Holy shit.
But my favorite is him. They cut to a wide shot, and he's running across the room, just slapping chairs,
breaking pots. I love that. It's so perfect.
He's running. That sentence is something I never thought I would hear, but I love the idea of just running across the room, slapping chairs.
And are we using this clip as our opening clip, though? I'm very upset.
I think it's gonna be that or the smooch me princess or smooch me now pucker up prince. I think I'm very upset is funnier though. We don't need any more pervy stuff from Link. He already does that enough on his own.
This is true.
And I love how though while Ganon's doing that, the king and Sprite are hiding in a suit of armor. They just keep changing their hiding place. They're like, the first time they're just in their clone room. They're on the throne. It's like, okay, I get it. You're out in the open, go hide. So then they hide here. And then in another scene, they're hiding under the bed. I'm like, dude, you were in the same room as Ganon, hiding in the armor, and he didn't notice you. Why did you move? You didn't need to. You were fine. You just had to stay there.
I was expecting a moment where Link and Zelda were about to fight a knight or fight a someone, and then it ended up being the king, like in disguise, like wait, it's me. I assumed that's what they were setting up here. That didn't happen, but that would have been fun.
That's far too clever for this show.
That would have, yeah. This show is nothing if not clever, ever, not once. It cuts back to Link and Zelda traversing through the underworld. Zelda conjures a stairwell with the Triforce because that's just something we can do, I guess.
Hey, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
definitely what they needed
The
to
whole
happen
time.
in that moment.
Yeah. Yes. It's a plot device. Like that's the magic.
There's an
is
episode
plot.
of
It makes
Tom and
plot.
Jerry that this reminds me of. Anyways, sorry,
Ooh.
very random. Just an endless staircase. It also reminds me of Mario
Continue.
64, the staircase that.
Yeah, I could see that.
That's true.
Maybe
Just
Zelda
long
did
jump.
it first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would've
Zelda
thought.
did it They're like,
Yeah.
Shigeru Miyamoto, old Shiggy was like, oh my gosh, look at that stairwell in episode 6 is the Zelda cartoon. I could do that with
Yeah.
Mario. And everyone's like, Shiggy, you're a madman. He's like, I will do it and you will listen to me.
I promise you, it's been done before.
We can do it better. We can rebuild it. Oh my gosh.
This whole time, though, I've been like, why have they not just brought the Triforce with them if it's this powerful? Why have they not done this sooner?
Because plot.
Yeah.
I can't really think of anything else.
You win the game, Josh.
I guess so. I mean, that's unfortunately, like, that's always what the answer is going to be, is when something doesn't make sense. Why do they do it? Plot, convenience. Who cares? Kids are stupid. They're not going to notice. Well, I notice, God damn it. So that's all. And I'm a child at heart, so I think that counts. Anyway, they fight. They get to the top of the stairs. They fight a Dark Nut, and honestly, kind of in relation to this, as well as the fight with the Tektites earlier, the animation for the fights isn't awful. Like, considering the rest of the budget quality on this show, like, they do a decent enough job for it comparatively to other moments within this cartoon. Like, there's moments where I'm like, wow, they actually tried on this. And so I liked the fight well enough. And after he defeats the Dark Nut, he gets the bracelet that the Triforce was talking about earlier, which is supposed to be like one of those like power gauntlets type of thing. I forget the actual term for it, but it lets you in the games.
It's the power bracelet.
It's the power bracelet. There you go.
Yeah.
It lets you lift heavy boulders and stuff like that. And they pick it up, and then they get outside of Ganon's castle, and Link starts yelling like he basically the equivalent of, Ganon, you fucking nerd, come on out here.
Get out here, nerd.
Get out of here, nerd. He's like, what?
It works.
Where's my evil jar?
Yeah. And Ganon uses like his magic to put chains around Link. And the first thing I thought, as someone who has drawn chains before in illustrations and things, not fun. I don't have fun drawing chains. And for some reason, they drew the smallest chains on Link. And I was like, wow, they must enjoy torturing themselves with these tiny little chain links that they had to draw instead of doing big old chunky chains. But that was just what I noticed.
That's so true. They went like super
That is
detailed
true.
or like super small and like intricate on the chains. And then for Zelda being wrapped up earlier, she just like looked like a mummy.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
one color. No
They put
no
all their
detail.
budget
Yeah.
into the chains.
Oh my goodness. After Link gets wrapped up in chains, Zelda tries to save him. Ganon then basically just starts using his magic to suck her towards him and take everything. And that's when Zelda goes, Link, don't forget about the bracelet. And he goes, oh yeah. And breaks out of the chain, puts the bracelet on, breaks out of the chains, and basically just like he picks Ganon up and then just yeets him off the screen.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. The animation, speaking of, was pretty good there, where he just kind of yanks him towards him. That was pretty good. But they also insinuate that the power bracelet has a limited time
Yeah.
to use it, and I was like, okay, now they were correct up until that point. Like, it looks like the power bracelet from the instruction manual. It makes you stronger, like in the game. And they're like, oh, you only have so much amount of time to do it. I was like, hold on a second, you lost me.
Any thoughts from you, Chris, on the stuff because I just kind of burned through that. I want to make sure you had some time to get some comments in. Any comments on the Dark Nut fight or the Ganon fight, anything like that?
Well, I agree with what you said earlier. Pleasantly surprised, not blown away, but pleasantly surprised by the animation on some of the fighting and the action. there's some pretty cool stuff here. Like they definitely didn't go completely like the easy route, I guess. I'll also add too, I forgot to mention it earlier, it was pretty cool to see very briefly, it was pretty short-lived, but Zelda fighting against the Tektites earlier.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool. Before we even really got much Link action. That was pretty awesome. And we get a little more like Zelda action in this fight with Ganon, but not a whole lot. But any bit of that kind of stuff is cool to see. And it's also kind of neat how like earlier in the episode, Zelda was tied up and Link saved her. And now at the end, sort of Link is tied up and Zelda kind of saves him by reminding him about the bracelet in his pocket or whatever. Kind of a neat, I don't know, parallel there, but that's about all I have to say that hasn't already been said.
They do give Zelda some agency in this show, despite all of this show's flaws. Like, it's not perfect by any stretch. The biggest issue, friend of the show, Jala, who was actually on one of the Captain N episodes when we were doing that, I was on her podcast to talk about this cartoon, and one of the things she brought up was that Link and Zelda's, relationship is heavily based off of Moonlighting, the TV show Moonlighting with Bruce Willis, and I cannot remember the actress's name, who is the other lead in that. But and which because it was contemporary, it was in the 80s, and they're like, well, this is popular. Maybe this is something for the adults while we put it on this kids show, and it just comes off as creepy. If that's what like Bruce Willis is like in Moonlighting, I don't understand why people were. I mean, it was the 80s, I guess.
Sybil Shepherd.
Thank you. And it weirds me out in this, that the fact that Link is just always such a horn dog. So it has its moments where like Zelda is, she is independent and she saves Link more than once, like not just in this episode, but numerous times throughout the show.
Nice.
Is it the first episode where she throws the platter for him to deflect one of his sword beams to destroy a dragon?
Yeah.
It was pretty epic.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's some cool stuff in it, but most of it is like immediately ruined by Link just being a creep. Like in the end of the first episode, they get tied up together, and they've already saved the day. But like, Zelda's like, "Well, get us out of here." He's like, "Well, first you have to give me a kiss, princess." And it's like, "Well, it's like one step forward, 5 steps back, dude. Like, what the hell?"
Yeah.
There's a lot of weird stuff with this show, but they do end up saving the day, and the castle rises up. They get back, and Link's like, well, can I have that kiss now? And it's not Zelda giving him the kiss, it's the king.
He's like, if you insist, okay.
Like, talk about the perfect time to put the Cupid statue back in.
Oh my gosh, yes.
That would have.
Is it back there?
No, it's not. I mean, that like you guys were saying earlier, like assuming that was going to come back or play a bigger role, like this would have been the
that
time.
should have come back there.
But it's
what a
that would have
waste.
been in support of a joke that already doesn't work. So
there's no
may as well
payoff
just breeze
for.
through this.
What focus on this? Doesn't matter. Don't waste your energy on it because it doesn't matter. Any final thoughts from either of you on the Sinking Feeling episode?
Well, just a question. I think you guys touched on this earlier, although it might have been before we started recording. How does this compare to the other episodes? I think you guys said it compares pretty. This is on the better end, or like, I don't know, more positive. Like there's more positive qualities.
There's at least for me, Dexter and I have had the most variance. So like normally when we do the show, like these episodes, like Dexter and I are generally in agreement. Oh, this episode was good or this episode was bad. Zelda, we've had the most differences where like there'll be an episode I loathe and Dex like, this was much better than I thought it was going to be. I'm like, really? So it's all over the place. I would say this is out of the 6 that we've covered so far, including this one, I would say it's one of the better ones, but it still is a low bar to go over. Like it's not like it has to rise that high.
Yeah, it's so funny you said that because I feel like there's better episodes than this one.
See, there we go.
This one feels pretty, and it's only because like the place I'm coming from is it feels kind of standard. Like pretty straightforward. There's not really any twists and turns. You kind of know where it's going from the jump. And And even, I guess, like the most impressive stuff are just kind of the references to the games. But even then, like, I feel like there have been deeper cuts and cooler references in some of the other episodes, where even in episodes where that Josh didn't like, I was able to convince him that there were some like moments that were really cool or really interesting. And I think it just depends on the angle or what you want to get out of the show, kind of thing, what your expectations of getting out of the show are. It will depend on like what you think the quality of the show is.
Was this isn't the last episode, is it?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's 12 episodes, 13.
There's 13 episodes. Yeah, 13 episodes.
I don't know how they all come together, if they're all pretty standalone. This seemed like the ending of it. I was like, wait a minute, they kind of defeated Ganon. Is this like the last one, or is it more like every week or every episode it's a new thing?
Literally destroy Ganon in like one of the first episodes, and he's he's in with a bomb, just a bomb, and he's in his evil jar, like, I'll get you next time.
That's how it always
good,
is.
Then I'm glad there's plenty more still to come.
Yes. I'm trying to think of, I feel like the last episode was really good. I remember giving that high praise. Sing for the Unicorn, where they actually introduced like a new character and the concept of like a neighboring land outside of Hyrule, and I really got into that because they've got their Zelda references as well as like interesting new stuff beyond like a magic magnet.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So unless you guys have anything else to add, I think we're ready to move on to the live action segment.
Let's do it.
Good to me.
All right. So for those who don't know, the live action segments here, they bookend the shows. So you would have the first half of this live action segment before the cartoon. Then you'd watch the Zelda cartoon. Just like in the actual Super Mario Super Show, you would have the Mario cartoon instead. And then they bookend it at the end. So this one is called Tutti Frutti Oh Mario. And it is a play off of Little Richard's song Tutti Frutti. And the live action thing begins with something that we've seen before, believe it or not, in the Super Show, where Mario is using his bathroom mirror, this time for shaving, though, even though it's very clear he's not actually shaving anything off his face. He's using his bathroom mirror, and he opens it up, and hold on, let me just double check something real quick. Yeah. Why? So he has sorry, I just realized the stupidity of this. So he opens up his mirror, and inside is someone that you find out later their name is Little Robert, played by an actor named William Pugh. I don't know if I pronounced his last name correctly, but he's supposed to be impersonating Little Richard, the guy who sang, the wop babaloo bam a lop bamboo tutti frutti, that song. Hence the name of the episode. What's insane about this, though, is Mario is looking at himself in a mirror, shaving, decides to open up the mirror to what I guess theoretically would have been another mirror and start shaving.
That's an aspect I had not considered. He needs to get his razor out, but
that's why he opens it in the first place. Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right, though. Like, he starts shaving it as if there's a mirror also inside of the cabinet.
He's like, oh, well, I'll just leave the cabinet open then.
Yeah.
Got a mirror here, too.
And inside is William Pugh, or Little Robert. That's not the first time we've seen something like that. In the very first Mario Super Show episode, the live action segment there's what is it? They meet Nicole Eggert, who's an actress that was popular at the time. She was in like Baywatch and Charles in Charge and stuff like that. She appears in that mirror. So this just seems to be a spot for like celebrities to just randomly show up.
Oh, that gives a little more context to this.
Yes. Otherwise, it's completely random. And so Mario closes it, and he just keeps Little Robert just keeps randomly going a wop babaloo bop like over and over. Like it's like a nervous tick of his, I guess, or something like that. It's I love it so much,
man. This is crazy. The the mixing, like the sound mix, I don't know if it might just be this YouTube video. It might, it could be a million things, but it is such a fever dream. It is so hard to tell what's going on and where these sounds are coming from. It is crazy and super entertaining to watch. I had to watch this like 3 times just to get a grip. I also read, I like looked it up too, and I found like a plot summary of like what's happening here, which was really helpful as well. Just insane.
It's so much that's happening.
When Mario walks over to tell Luigi that there's something wrong with the mirror, Luigi was he feeding or trying to fix the Radigator?
He was trying to like feed or fix the Radigator, and I love like they're trying to figure out where the sound's coming from. And I wrote this down. They keep hearing, and Luigi thinks he says, "Do you think it's Clog?" Mm-hmm. So they have a drain clog as a pet whose name is also Clog. I think that's what they're positing.
Yes. I need more of this lore with these creatures, and I need them in a Mario game. I need Radigator and I need Clog in a Mario game.
Clog, the pet Clog.
Seeing Radigator, that was like, that unlocked in my brain. I completely remember Radigator as a kid and thinking that was the coolest puppet ever.
Yeah. Yeah, I watched this as a kid as well. I was super crazy about the Super Show. And so seeing this live action segment just brought back a flood of memories for me. I do not remember it being so hard to follow though when I was little. I was more just like taking it all in and just like, man, this is Mario and Luigi. This is awesome. But once you start actually looking at the plot, it's like, man, this is crazy.
Of course there's a scarecrow in a bathtub in the middle of their place.
I want someone to recreate this set like prop by prop, exactly 1-to-1, because I adore this set. It is absolutely like the whole thing is just insane. The whole thing about this set. It's so great though.
It's so great. I love like their costumes. I love their interpretations of Mario and Luigi. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a sense of irony to it, but I love this. Like, it's so fun and weird. So you're literally hitting on, Chris, exactly why I love doing the Mario episodes more than the Zelda ones. I genuinely think it's because of these live action segments, because Danny Wells, who plays Luigi, and Captain Lou Albano, who plays Mario, they buy into these ridiculous caricatures of characters so hard, and they're selling it. Like, they're not like, they're not phoning in the performance. Like, they're really like committing to the bits, and they're insane, over the top bits. Whether it's a pet clog named Clog, or you have a thing called a Radigator, and the whole premise of this like short section of the live action segment is that they meet little Robert, not little Richard, little Robert, and they invite him over for dinner. And the hope is that they can get a really good collectible souvenir by getting a recording of them singing with little Robert. And the first time they sing together, the very first thing is little Robert goes tutti frutti and they go spumoni. I just can't. It's so good. It's so stupid. Oh my God. And yeah, like the actor who's playing little Robert too, William Pugh, like he's committing to the bit too. Like he is insane. Like I thought Lou Albano chewed the scenery. William Pugh is like devouring it. He is committed to it. It's wonderful. Yeah, the energy in this room is off the charts.
I can't handle it. And then he tries to teach them how to sing, and like Luigi hides a recorder underneath like a piece of bread, pretty much like a piece of food or something like that, like lasagna or something like that. And the whole thing is that he's teaching them how to sing, and he keeps teaching them, and at the very end he goes like, all right, I'm ready to eat now, and they're like, oh, you can take it to go. And he's like, what? I spent all that time teaching you how to sing, and you're not even gonna let me eat my food in peace? He's so bad.
And their plan didn't even work. Radigator
No, it
eats
didn't.
the tape.
Yep.
Could you hear Radigator singing as well, by the way?
I did not. Is he singing in the background too?
He's singing the Wop Bop Loo Bop when they find him with all the like shredded tape in his mouth. They're like
Wow.
Radigator.
Oh, that's him.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
going like
that's
"Wop,
really
bop,
funny.
loo, bop," in like his
And
weird voice.
and
Oh
Luigi
yeah.
ends it with going like a bob bamboo, like really sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good cherry on top, actually.
It really is. And I love how like how did Radigator get the cassette tape they were using to record it with? Like he wasn't
Yeah.
anywhere near close to it.
Nope.
I love the puppet of Radigator so much though.
Yes, it's so accurate too. Because like, if you think about, I'm trying to think of some of the bad guys from the actual like bad guys from Mario 2, and they
Yeah,
would do
very
that
Mario 2.
where they put the black eyes and like with the little little beady eyes inside of black eye holes kind of thing. That it's very much matches that aesthetic of like Mario 2.
Yep.
And that's how the short live action segment ends though. They see that the tape that they worked all that way for that collectible cassette tape that they were trying to get, it's shredded by Radigator, and that's how it ends, and that's the end of the little narrative. There's not much to it more than that. I love everything about this. As per usual, I love the set. I just can't get over Clog. It's just such a stupid joke that I feel like it's passed over so quickly, but it's honestly a really funny joke to me. Just you have a pet clog. Your
It
plumber's with a
fleshes
pet
out this
clog.
world though, just that one little
Yeah.
gag.
I mean, okay, I'm assuming it's a clog, like it's a clog in a drain, because it's this mound of like brown puff that's like moving across the floor like it's slime. But I don't know.
And he covers it, but he doesn't even cover all of it. Like,
No, part of it's still sticking out.
Yeah.
It's just his tail. Oh my god. I love it so much. That's all I have for the live action segment though. Do either of you have anything you'd like to add to it or comment on?
oh, I don't think so. This is just great. I guess my same question as the Zelda episode. How does this compare to rewatching the other ones?
Oh, I love it all the same. The
Yeah.
Mario stuff. If you are curious, Chris, like you can actually go to YouTube. You can watch the entirety of the Mario Super Show for free on YouTube.
Nice.
Like the Zelda stuff is also free through like the Wild Brain YouTube channel, but the Mario Super Show is also on the Wild Brain YouTube channel. The reason why I have to send 2 video links is because the Zelda cartoon only shows just the cartoon segment. It does not show any of the live action stuff. So then I have to search separately the live action stuff for the Zelda cartoon.
Right.
On the
They used
Mario
to-
cartoon, it has both on it, no matter what.
And that's because Zelda used to be on the Friday episodes of the Mario Super Show is when they would show the Zelda cartoon. So
Okay.
they were originally packaged together and like have gotten separated over time. I'm sure there's rights tape and all kinds of weird stuff that's caused them to be separated over time. But originally it was all packaged together, and supposedly they were going to continue expanding to like Metroid as well.
Whoa.
And there's some actual mock-up art, and it was before like clearly they were creating this pitch for this Metroid show before playing the game, because the character of Samus was a guy like running around and stuff too. So like, somebody didn't beat the game.
Yeah.
Like, but there's some pretty interesting art out there, and same thing with like Captain N was originally going to be Paperboy, like the arcade game Paperboy, and it was supposed to be like that was kind of the angle they were coming from. But there's some pretty interesting stuff, and I guess it just never was able to catch on beyond like Mario and Zelda, and even then like they just ended up reducing it to just Mario. But yeah, they were hoping to make like a whole block of Nintendo game shows for a while.
Wow.
And it's a shame that they didn't, because I would have loved to see the insanity of how off all of them were. Like, it's just, what I find so amusing about both of these shows is just how different they are from the actual source material. But like, there's so much, like, they're different, but they're so heavily inspired by, I mean, obviously, because it's the games or whatnot. But like the Mario Super Show, right? Like, the amount of stuff in the cartoons and the live action segments that have to do with the game is basically, other than the characters and the sound effects, zero. Like, there's nothing else more to it than that. Same with Zelda. Like, Zelda at least has like the world building feels kind of the same. And I think the orchestration of the music, as we've commented before, Dex, is just so good in the cartoon.
The music
like,
in Zelda is fantastic.
Yeah, I forgot to point out in the
Yeah.
first Ganon scene of this last episode, when we hear the original dungeon music, that was so cool.
Yes,
and it's wild to think about how much effort had to get put into doing that, when it was like, like, that's a full orchestra. It's not like they would have had like good samples back then. I'm sure they did to an extent, but like, I would assume that was recorded by a live orchestra or something, or if they just got really good samples.
That's true. It did sound really good.
It's really impressive, considering like these cartoons were known for not really giving too much of a shit about the source material. Like, they cared a little bit, obviously, the writers and the people who created, but like the higher ups are just like, this is going to make us money, so who cares?
Yeah.
But the fact that they did the soundtrack the way they did for the cartoon is still just, it blows my mind, just knowing the context of how little was actually cared about in terms of like the higher ups. Like, but they allowed it, so here it is.
Pretty cool. I do have one more question. Obviously, the Zelda show does not hold up in a lot of ways. Please tell me the Super Mario Brothers Super Show is not that way.
It's still, so how like when you watch the live action segment, it's so good it's bad. Like, it's so enjoyable, it's so silly and over the top and insane and not sensical that it's actually fun to watch. That's the Super Show.
Okay.
Like, because it's got live action segments like you saw here, and it's got cartoon segments, and the cartoon segments are like, we have a running list on our for those episodes of like weird themes that we've noticed that continue on throughout each of the episodes. Like, I'll bring it up real quick, Dex. I have
it's so absurd that it's charming. Couple of moments off the top of my head, one of the later episodes we watched of Mario, they're playing they're undercover on a steamboat playing Go Fish, but they're playing it all wrong. Like, the rules, they're like, got any sevens? And he's like, nope, go fish, haha. Like, I don't know, it's just it's so strange. And what's another
in that
Luigi,
episode,
when Luigi gets scared, he's like, I can't do it, I'm pregnant, or whatever. Like,
he always has something like so he finds a crazy excuse. In the first episode, he goes, they're trying to climb a mountain, he goes, I can't, I'm allergic to mountains.
Yeah.
And then in the second episode, he's like, I can't, I'm gonna have a baby.
That's what it is.
That's so random.
This one's not an excuse, but it makes me laugh. It's in the third episode, and someone calls Mario and Luigi like felons, and he goes, felons? Yo, I never fell on nobody. And it's stuff like that. Also, Mario has bizarre food cravings in each of the cartoon segments, where like the first one, he wants a pepperoni cheesecake, a mozzarella milkshake, fettuccine sundae, ravioli smothered in honey. That was another one.
Oh, wow.
And then the other thing we keep track of is the Bowser's insults. So every time King Koopa insults Mario and Luigi, he calls them stuff like pinhead plumbers, scum scrubbers, pasta eating plumbers, impudent little faucet fixer. It's there's so much to enjoy out of this. Pesky pipe pushers. That's a good one.
Nice.
So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we enjoy about the Super Show. The The Zelda cartoon, at least for me, is a little bit more of a chore.
Yeah.
But this episode has been a lot of fun to do. I can't thank you enough for coming. Not to like wrap it up, but
Oh,
like
yeah.
thank you for coming on. This was a lot of fun.
I'm so glad to hear it. Thank you guys for having me. Yeah, this was a blast. And yeah, I grew up with the Super Show, so I'm glad to hear that is still entertaining and fun to watch, even if it is absurd and not so much cringeworthy like this Zelda show sometimes can be.
I mean, it's cringe, but in a fun way.
Yeah, but in sort of a different way. So, but yeah, thank you guys so much. This has been a blast.
Dexter, do you have any final thoughts before we do our wrap ups?
I don't think so. Thank you, Chris, for joining us. It's been really fun.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we'll do our wrap ups now. That's it for this episode. Thank you everyone for listening. We're going to do our shout outs now. So why don't we give our guest the floor first? So Chris, where can the good people find you online? Shout it all out here.
Yeah. So I am on Instagram mainly, but also X and Blue Sky. Chris Carp Official or CC Media Chris. Again, if you just look up Chris Carpenter, hopefully I pop up, but those are the handles if you need them. So, yeah.
All right. And then Dexter, where can the good people find you online?
You can find me under my name on most of these social media sites, DexterMorrill is how you spell the last name. But yeah, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, all those things. I'm usually there sharing retro video game stuff or historical stuff for video games or my artwork or my students' artwork, all that stuff. But I'm gonna go ahead and tell people to go check out Chris's stuff today.
Thank you.
All right. As usual for myself, you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, Threads. Though I'm debating on Instagram and Threads recently, but I'm still on there for now. Blue Sky, mainly Blue Sky is my big one now, but at Still Loading Pod on all those locations. I also stream on Twitch about twice a week, usually Tuesdays and Saturdays. At Still Loading Pod over there around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, though that fluctuates a little bit, so be on the lookout for that. If you want to support the show, you can do so in a number of ways. You can give it a 5-star rating or review on whichever podcasting app you use, because that helps more people find the show and it makes me feel warm and fuzzy. You know, I like feeling warm and fuzzy. You can also support the show monetarily if you really like it. There is a Patreon, patreon.com/stillloadingpod. For as little as $1 a month, you get all the episodes earlier with better audio quality, patron voting rights, which there are quarterly polls, and at least one big annual poll to decide a big backlog month special where my patrons pick 4 games for me to play out of my backlog, and I play all 4 of them later on in the year. That's all for $1 a month. For $3 a month, you get everything I mentioned prior, plus patron shoutouts, which you heard at the beginning of this episode. For $4 a month, you get all that stuff, plus 2 mini bonus episodes. And for $5 a month, you get everything, all the previous tiers, plus access to my monthly movie podcast, which right now, when this episode is being released, it is still family. My monthly Fast and Furious movie podcast for all of the guests who join me aren't just friends. Their family. So if you want to check that out, that is all over at patreon.com/stillloadingpod. And I think that's it. I think that's all I got for you today. Thank you all so much for joining me. Dexter, Chris, thank you once again for hopping on.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for having me.
And with all that said, listeners, I will see you all next time.